Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hopefully you can hear us well. Give us a thumbs up if you can hear our audio. I see some thumbs going. Awesome. And you should see a presentation up as well. Okay, wonderful. I know there will be some more people joining us, um, but I think we'll just get started just to be respectful of everyone's time. I'm just going to pass the mic over to Desiree just really quickly. Desiree is my lovely colleague. She will be doing the moderating aspect of today's webinar while I focus on presenting. So if you have any questions, they'll be going to her, and then we can always discuss as a group.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I'm Desiree, and I'm the moderator. As we're trickling in, you will see a question at the very bottom of your screen. So in the chat, you can please share your name, your role, and where you're joining from. And as a little icebreaker question, how are you feeling going into the new school year, 2025 to 2026? Feel free to put that into the chat.
And I know that's a loaded question, might be a bit too soon for some of us, but depending on where you're joining us, I know that you're probably already back in the classroom or at least getting ready to do so. But please do share in the chat. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Sarah from BC. Excited to work again. I love the enthusiasm. That's awesome. Hi, Victoria. Hi again. We just saw each other at a meeting earlier.
I'm gonna share mine as well, even though, you know who I am, Tatiana.
No, that's awesome. Desiree also used to be an educator, a classroom teacher. Do you miss being back, that anticipation
That
before?
feeling,
Yep,
yeah, that summer is nearly ending feeling. Yeah, no, I don't really miss it. It is yeah, it's mixed feelings
mixed
about
feelings.
this for sure.
Oh yeah, my mother is an educator, and she just told me we had a conversation earlier, and she was like, "Don't want to talk about it, but I am going back to work next week for PD days." But it is, yes, does create some anxiety for some folks.
Mm-hmm.
Ho
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you were able to enjoy your summers and are feeling well rested. But we do have a few housekeeping items to go through here, but continue to introduce yourselves in the chat. All right. In terms of housekeeping, we are recording today's session. So we will send you the copy of that in the follow-up email. And when it comes to questions and discussions today, we are going to use two different sections of the Zoom webinar. So I wanted you to take a look at the bottom or wherever the black bar is on your screen. You should see a Q&A box that will look like a question mark. If that doesn't appear on the black bar, just simply click on the More button, those three dots, and you should see Q&A as an option. And for any, discussion questions, if you want to share ideas, network, that would be in the chat box, which we're currently using and we're very familiar with. And finally, we also want you to share your thoughts with us, your feedback when you exit this webinar today. There will be a survey that will get triggered. If you're unable to do that on the spot, no worries. We will also include that survey link in the follow-up email. But we do encourage you to tell us what you thought of today's session, what you'd like to see moving forward. That's how we can improve here at SpacesEDU and make these sessions as relevant as possible. And in terms of resources, I will be sharing this at the end of the session as well, but I'm just going to drop the link here in the chat for you. And this is actually a handout that we've prepared that will allow you to follow along after the session today, just creating those or doing those same tasks that we are going to do together. And you can get started as soon as you exit this webinar or even as soon as tomorrow, which is the goal here. Before we get started, just a little bit about me. I'm the Education Services Manager here at SpacesEDU. I've been in this role or part of the team for 3 years now, and prior to that, I was at York University in Toronto, where I spent the majority of my career in academic advising, so working very closely with university students and their degree pathways, making sure that they're on track to graduate. Now I'm the friendly face behind SpacesEDU trainings, or maybe you might recognize my voice if you took any of our asynchronous learning modules on Otis. That is me, and we will likely spend many more times together during, future training sessions as well. So just a brief here agenda of what we're going to be covering today. We are going to dive into SpacesEDU, what it is, and how to configure your first class. So with a brief intro on the basics, configuring your class settings, and also focusing on digital documentation with a hands-on walkthrough of key features. So there will be a live demo, very exciting. And again, all of this will be recorded, so no worries if you can't take those notes on the fly. We will make sure you get those after the session today. And we will, of course, go through some easy, actionable next steps to get you started and tackle any of the questions you may have. We don't have to wait until the very end. I do encourage you to just jump in if anything it needs clarification throughout the demo today. First, I want to get to know who's with us here in the room. I know we were able to do our intros, but I'm more interested in understanding your level of knowledge. Are you a beginner? Are you an intermediate or even an expert in SpacesEDU? Meaning you could probably lead the session or have led similar sessions in the past for your schools. We may have a variety of levels in the room, but I do want to capture that right now through a poll that I'm going to launch right now. So you should see that on your screen. Let me know where you're at in your SpacesEDU journey. If you're a beginner, that's okay. That's the whole purpose of the today's session. If you are intermediate or even an expert, I do want to encourage you to share in the chat any of your own tips and tricks, ideas that others might benefit from. We're all here to learn from one another. So I would be interested to see how you put all of these best practices into practice in your own SpacesEDU classes. I see a bit of a mix here between beginner, I'm just starting out, and some having intermediate level experience. So that's good. We're pretty split here. And I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll to share those results with you. But like I said, feel free to share your own ideas in the chat. Okay, so what is SpacesEDU? Well, through SpacesEDU, you can connect teachers, students, and families to showcase student learning and essentially highlight students' amazing successes. And what I love about SpacesEDU is its versatility, and you'll see that in a moment. As educators, you can decide how you want to set up your SpacesEDU class. And I also love that the platform is available as an app for educators, students, and families. So that makes it super easy to communicate student learning on an ongoing basis. But in a nutshell, SpacesEDU is a digital portfolio and proficiency-based assessment platform built to showcase student growth and competency development. Now let's talk about spaces, also known as or personalized learning environments. This is our namesake feature and what we will be focusing most of our time on today. So what you are seeing right now are the three different space types that are available to you as educators. within your own SpacesEDU classrooms. You will all have a class space once you create a class, and this will be your starting point. Think of the class space as your online classroom. So this is where you'll be connected to all your students will be connected to each other, and you could even grant families access to the class space. So this is essentially like a bulletin board. Everything that you post in there is visible to everyone. So it's great for announcements, reminders, group discussions, anything that the entire class should be made aware of, or any information and resources you might want to share with your students and their families. Now, as I said, this is your starting point, and you can create additional learning environments, one of which is the one-to-one space. Definitely a learning environment that is very popular here at SpacesEDU, as it allows students and teachers to connect on an individual level. It's a personal environment that remains private between teachers and students. So this would allow you to have um, it's similar to like pulling a student aside in your classroom, but in an online environment. So everything's private. You only have access as the educator to all of your students' one-to-one spaces, and individual students have access to their own. And in addition to the one-to-one space, we have the group space, and this is intended to be a collaborative environment for pairs or groups of students. You can customize the groups, a number of students in each group, and go from there. And it's great for group projects and any sort of collaborative activities that you like to promote in your classroom. But for the purpose of today's presentation and webinar, we want to focus more on the class space and the one-to-one space. All of these options are great, of course, but we're just going to have a more targeted focus here on these two learning environments. All right, let me jump into my own SpacesEDU class here to perform that walkthrough with you and explain all the different features and the basics you need to be familiarized here with for launching your first class. I'm actually just going to zoom in. I didn't realize how tiny the text looked. Let me know if this is good. Otherwise, I can always zoom in even further. But when you log in for the first time, or if this is after summer vacation, you might see your previous class. If not, that means your school or district has opted for automatic archive. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to archive. You just click these three dots here to archive the class. Additionally, I do want to point out that some schools and districts opt for class rostering. What does this mean? This means that you don't have to create a class manually. When you log in, you will see your own classes in there. Perhaps not right now, but closer to the beginning of the school year. Always confirm with your district administrator or school lead on whether or not that will be an option for you. Otherwise, if you just want to get started right now to test out those features that we're going to cover today, I want to encourage you to create a manual class here by clicking the Add Class button. And that way you can test out the configuration pieces before you get started officially in your class. All right, so we're going to jump into my class here and tackle some of these elements together. So when you're going to log into your class for the very first time, your Spaces tab, which is what we're currently in, will look pretty empty compared to mine. What we're seeing here are learning environments that I've created myself that I found would be suitable for my classroom, for my students' needs. So when you log in, you will only see your class space at the very top here. You might see the reporting space, in which case I don't want you to worry about that too much. We're not covering that today, but some districts and schools do use the reporting space for formal or informal learning updates, and there will be a separate training for that organized by your school leads. But moving on to here, just a class space really quickly, want to call out the space settings here that you can modify at any point in time. By clicking on the three dots on the class space card, you can go ahead and click the Edit Space Settings, and you'll see that there are a bunch of toggles available that you can turn on and off as you wish. So depending on the level of interactivity that you're looking to promote in the class space, you just may want to experiment here with those toggles. For family access, you do have the option to grant visibility into the class space, and then of course, optionally providing them comment access if you'd like them to be engaged in the comments section. As for the one-to-one spaces, I've kept it pretty simple myself, but some folks like to use the one-to-one spaces for different units across the school year, different subject areas. I myself have set up a learning space here, which catches all student learning across different subject areas. And I've also created one specifically for an IEP. So it is fantastic for differentiated learning. You can have a one-to-one space dedicated to a single student who may be on an IEP, and that would be a great way to track if they're meeting learning goals, expectations, etc. And if you have a educational assistant, resource teacher who is also, looking after the student, they can contribute to that space as well once you invite them to your class. As for the learning space here, let me just show you really quickly some examples of posts that you can share. One thing that I do want to call out here while we're in the space itself is that the top portion is your space description that is totally customizable. You can add any additional media on here as well, maybe some resources. Here I have some feedback prompts that families can use. We also have a family kit available, and you may want to include a your proficiency scale that might be relevant here. Basically any additional resources that might be useful. On the left-hand side, I have access as the educator to all of my students' one-to-one spaces so I can navigate from one student to the next, and I can see as well the number of posts that they've contributed. So that's a really quick snapshot on how engaged a class is on SpacesEDU, and I may want to nudge a couple students to share their own learning here. And on the right-hand side, this you might be wondering what it is. It's the tags and proficiencies panel. We're not quite looking at the assessment pieces here today, but we do have a session on that this week. So I would recommend joining us for that as well. But I mentioned earlier that we are a proficiency-based assessment platform. So you are able to establish those curriculum connections here and assign proficiencies, to those learning outcomes. So just know that this is available in your account, and you may want to start dipping your toes into the assessment pieces once you've set up your class officially. So here we have just a few posts as examples. So I have students working on oral storytelling. They're practicing. They're recording themselves and the multiple tries that they've maybe posted on SpacesEDU, and as a teacher, I can provide that descriptive feedback in real time under that post, and I can also see and track if they've made improvements from post to post based on the proficiencies that I've applied here as well. So it can be student driven, it can also be teacher driven, it can be a collaboration co-developed by teachers and students here. And sometimes you may even have family members involved. Again, depending on your visibility settings, that is something that might be important to you to make sure that they see what's happening in the classroom and provide their own feedback to their students. just going to pause here in case there are any questions specifically when it comes to the one-to-one space. Nothing so far?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, awesome. Well, in that case, let's look at how you would create that one-to-one space. Oh, I see that there's a question on how to create a post. We are going to look at how to create one in the class space soon, but in any space that you're in, you're going to see a create button in the bottom right of your screen. And once you click that, you have the ability to select a post. And then from there, you have those multimedia options available. You can add a title and a post description. But we'll go through all of that in the class space together, but just know that that button exists in all of the spaces that you have access to or created. All right, to exit this view and to bring me back to the Spaces tab, I'm going to click the arrow here in the top left corner. All right, so I'm back here. And again, I'm going to look for that big blue button in the bottom right corner, the create button here. And this time I'm creating a new space. So we can create that one-to-one space together. So I'm selecting this one. Once I hit next, it's going to prompt me to select my students. By default, it will select my entire class, and it does select all future students as well. So whoever joins your class in the future is guaranteed to have the same setup as their peers, which is a really great feature. We all know that class lists change at the beginning of the year, or when we have transfer students as well. So this is a great option to have. I'm going to leave it as is. My intention here is to create a one-to-one space for my entire class. So once I hit next, I can customize some fields here. I'm opting for a math learning space here for my students. I'm going to include a quick description so my students and families know how we intend to use the space. And then I'm also going to include a link to some fun math games that students can play on their own time and just practice some of their skills at home. Optionally, I have here the ability to include a little thumbnail photo that would be representative of the space. So you can get creative, and that allows you to include a little icon there. I think I didn't choose the right file type. So just imagine that I have a math icon available. Um, and then we'll just click save. All right, so our space has been customized. We have all of our students linked here on the left-hand side. But as you can see, the space is hidden, and this is intentional. What we want to, make sure here is that the space is well populated, or maybe with a first post to welcome students to the space, and give teachers the choice and decide when they want to share it. But if I'm ready to share, I can go ahead and review those settings by clicking the blue link here in the middle of the page. And I can set it to active for student access. So this allows them to not only see the content in here, but also start posting to the space. And for families, I'm going to make this visible for them and give them comment access as well. And once I hit save, it will trigger a notification to both students and families so they can log in and start, students can start posting to this space. All right. Any questions about that creation process before we move forward?
No questions on my
No
end.
questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I wanted to move on here and talk about our first post. So let's go back and take a look at the class space together. As a first post, I would recommend doing that in the class space, so that way you can be more interactive and ensure that students are collaborating even or getting used to the platform as well. Again, let's just quickly look at some post examples here in the class space. So you may want to use the class space for peer-to-peer feedback. Here we have a unit on oral storytelling, and we asked our students to share their story outline in a post. And in the comment section, we can see that I've provided some feedback in there, and students as well have provided their own comments. My apologies. My internet connection is causing me some issues here. Just going to do a quick refresh. Right. For reflections, you can have, so this was more of a end of the school year activity. We had students reflect on their time in my class, end of year reflections. You could talk about social emotional learning and have students also engage in the comments section here. And then, of course, any information or resources for parents, maybe a classroom newsletter that can be shared in the class space alongside a calendar of events to look forward to, and entry tickets or exit tickets. That's another great tip here. But anyways, all of that to say, these are just some ideas that you can borrow and apply to your own class space. But for the first post, I was thinking more of an icebreaker. So I'm going to click on the create button here in the bottom right corner and head to post. I'm going to do a quick title. And this is a post that I've written prior to this session. So I'm going to copy and paste that in here. Basically introducing and welcoming my class to SpacesEDU, and then mentioning that for our first activity, I would like them to share a picture from their summer vacation. So it could be anything, a drawing, a delicious meal, maybe they cooked, a photo from their travels. This can be shared in the comments section down below the post. And that way they can start familiarizing themselves with the multimedia options and also just different functionalities that exist here in SpacesEDU. I can also attach additional media files if I like a photo of myself, for example, a video introduction. I can do an audio as well. And you're not tied to just text-based content here. You can make it as dynamic as you'd like. All right, so it has already selected here our space where we'd like to publish this post, and also selected our students. So we'll go ahead and hit post here to officially publish it. And it will be the very last post, or the most recent one at the top. So once students log in, they can start commenting right below, and even add reactions to the post as well. And all of this, again, is part of the notifications process, so they will see that there's a post they should check out in their spaces. Any questions about the post creation process here?
No questions.
Okay, wonderful. I do want to bring it back to you just really quickly.
Oh,
Not, oh,
we do
is
have
there
a
a question?
question. Yep.
All right.
Does it look the same for students?
That's a great question. The posting creation process is very similar. I And you actually, as the educator, can take a peek as to how that experience looks like. Let me actually just head out of this space here and share a little tip with you. So as part of having a class, you have access to a student view directly from your own account. To switch from teacher to student, you can click on your avatar here in the top right corner and click on student. You'll remain in the same class. And this is the view that we have as a student. You may notice that some of the tabs are not visible from a student's point of view, and they have visibility into the spaces that we granted them access to. If we jump into one of these spaces here, I will show you just really quickly the post creation process. Again, we're looking for that big blue button in the bottom right corner to create a post, and it opens up the post details dialog here, and students can fill in the boxes here with the content, share their photos and files at the top, and it automatically selects the space that they were in previously, and they can just post directly from this window here. So really great question, Natalie. And as you can see, the post creation process is really simple for both students and teachers. Anyone else curious here while we're in the student account about any other aspects of the student experience?
No questions about students or the student profile?
All right, no worries. I wanted to take a quick break and bring it back to you now that you've seen some examples of the types of posts that you can share that students can also share on SpacesEDU. I would like you to tell me one thing that maybe came to mind if you had an idea about what your students or yourselves can share on SpacesEDU. I'm only looking for one example. Um, really quickly, what would you like to see shared on in your own SpacesEDU classes?
I see some comments here. Natalie says, I like the idea of students being able to share their process and not just the final product.
Yep, and that's the whole point of the platform, is to showcase that growth throughout the year. And they're reading. That's a great option as well. They can record themselves with video or even audio throughout their literacy journeys, and you can see how they've developed and progressed over time. Student reflections, that's another big one, especially in BC with core competencies. So you could have a core competencies one-to-one space just for reflections. Events and activities that happen in our class so parents can be included as well. I would agree, it does help bridge that gap and give them, we like to call it a window into the classroom so they can see what their child is learning. Yes, Shannon, core competencies, reflections, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. And just as we're going through the session today, continue to write down those notes and ideas as they come to mind. And if you'd like to brainstorm a few with us, feel free to ask those questions. Okay, I'm going to jump back into my teacher view here. Again, just a reminder, we're clicking our avatar in the top right corner and then heading into teacher. Okay, so quick recap, what we've gone through together, it was configuring our class for the first time. So we're going through the class space settings and brainstorming some ideas for one-to-one spaces and creating at least a one-to-one space for our students, and adjusting those settings accordingly. We've created a first post to engage our students on the platform and potentially families if we're granting them access to those various learning environments. So now that we have all of this set up, the next step is to invite people to your class, inviting your community to your Spaces EDU class. I mentioned earlier that class rostering was an option. Most of our partners or districts and schools do opt for class rostering. If that is the case, it does eliminate a couple steps for you. You don't have to invite your students. You don't have to, um, go through that process with them. But you still have to invite your co-teachers and your families as well. So let me take you to the People tab right here to show you what that process looks like. For those of us who are maybe going to be manually inviting students to our Spaces EDU class, the process is pretty simple through the People tab. We're in the Students tab already, and there is an Invite Students button here. Once they create an account, they would simply add this class code, and that way they can be tied to your class. So that is one way to do it. And if you have Google Classroom, that's another option as well. And if you just want to double check whether or not you have a student view into your class, just check out the banner here on your students list. If it's toggled on, it will be in blue, and that would allow you to switch over from teacher to student view. And if you'd like to also download some QR codes for easy access to the platform, they are available here by clicking on the View All QR Codes button. You're able to select students that you like to create those QR codes for. Just make sure that you save that in a safe place that does contain some confidential information, and it would allow students to easily log into their accounts without password and username. On the flip side, once students are invited and officially added to your class, now's the time to engage families. So you would be able to enter their families' emails here underneath the student's name, and that would allow you to trigger an invite. So send that invite, and families would be able to create an account from directly from the email here.
Tatiana, I have a question
Mhm.
in the chat. Sarah asks, how do students get their username and password?
That's a great question. If your school or district is doing a single sign-on, so SSO, they would be using their school emails and passwords. And that's typically the best practice anyway, is to use the school credentials. Again, Sarah, I am not sure which district or school you're joining us from, but I would recommend connecting with your school lead and figuring out whether or not that class rostering piece is available and set up for you. But typically it would be the school email and password. And another tip here that I wanted to mention was the class engagement dashboard. So if you're curious about whether or not families are logging in or even students, this is where you would take a look. By viewing the dashboard, you can see the last time that the parent has access to class and even the student. So here I could be like, Lisa, maybe it's time to log into Spaces and add some posts or content about your learning. So this is a great tool to leverage throughout the school year.
Tatiana, whilst we're talking about family, Shannon has a question. If the district is using rostering to create classes,
Mhm.
would the parent's email address automatically be added?
I and not automatically, but some districts and some schools do opt for that option just to have a list of contacts for family email addresses. And if that is the case, there will be a separate button visible under the family tab, and you'd be able to click on it and just select the family member and trigger that email through there. Those are some really great questions. Keep them coming. All right, and then finally, the teachers tab. So if you have any co-teachers, maybe resource teachers, educational assistants that you'd like to grant visibility and access into your Spaces EDU class, you would invite them through this button right here by entering their email address. And you can have up to 10 teachers in total in a Spaces EDU class, so including yourself. They would have the same level of access to able to create a post, have a dedicated space, and follow along in the documentation journey.
Tatiana, I've got a question from Vicky in the Q&A section. She
Mhm.
asks, what does it look like from the parents' end in the process to join the class space?
The process to join the class space, so there is an email that goes out that gets triggered, and from there they would click the link and create an account. They wouldn't be joining the space itself, but they would just join the class altogether. And then you as the educator could decide which space you'd like to grant them access. Um, and I can show you really quickly. Let me see if I have a parent account visible here. We'll open up a separate tab for that. If you wanted to test out the family account yourself, I would recommend inviting um, yourself as a family through your own student account. So adding your own email underneath your student name there. All right. Oh, this is in French. Sorry about that. Just gonna quickly change my language settings here for you. Okay, so when families log into their accounts, if they are tied to multiple classes, they will have the classes dashboard first. So from there, they can select the class they want to see. So we'll take a look at the same class we were just in earlier. And over here, what they have access to is the Spaces tab, which includes those learning environments that we created and gave them access to as well. And then they have access to messages on the top here. So as the educator, you're able to communicate directly with families through direct messaging. You can also create contact families and students through channels, which is like your group settings. So that's already pre-created for you. But those would be ideal for your one-off messages that maybe they don't require documentation in the platform. So if there's any quick messages you want to send, reminders about a field trip or permission slip, etc., this would be a great tool to use here. And if we go to the Spaces tab, when they click on one of the learning spaces, if they have access to or they're tied to more than one student in the class, they would see their names here and it could toggle between student to student here. So the platform looks very similar across the different users, but of course, the level of access will differ. I hope that answered your questions. If you require additional clarification on the family account, please let me know. All right, so that pretty much covers the step-by-step process in setting up your first class in Spaces EDU. So from configuring your settings to creating a one-to-one space to creating your first post to engage your classroom community, and then of course to invite people to your class. What I do want to leave you with today is how to start exploring the assessment tools. And that all begins with the curriculum tag sets. So those curriculum tags that we saw earlier, those need to be added by the educator. To start adding those curriculum tags, you would go to the assessment tab here, and then you would manage your tag sets. And as you can see, I've already added a bunch myself, but you would start by clicking the Add Curriculum Tag Sets button. And the easiest way to go about this is to search by state or province. So you could go, say, British Columbia, select your subject area, could be ELA, for example, grade 6, and then you would click Add Tag Sets, and that would be added to your list here. You would see it here. And I would just repeat that same process for all of these subject areas that you intend on maybe assessing or tracking, documenting in Spaces EDU. Because what's great about curriculum tags is it's not just for assessment purposes, but it does help you stay organized in the platform. It's a way to categorize the content and make it easier to filter through what you're seeing in your spaces. So definitely recommend um, doing this extra step if you were curious about the assessment tools in your class. And that pretty much wraps up the walkthrough here, unless there are any additional questions. Oh,
Vicky
when is
asks,
the,
oops, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry. When is the assessment webinar this week? It is on the 20th, so that would be Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, I have a slide for the schedule, so you can take a screenshot and also scan the QR code. That way you can sign up and get a spot. But you still haven't missed it, so that's great. All right. So your next steps, where to go from here? You're going to maybe create a class if it's for testing purposes, or if you want to create a class manually, that's an option there. And that would allow you to then play around with all the different features we walked through together today, and even maybe explore those assessment tools later on. Adjusting your class-based settings will be essential as well. So determining how interactive you want that class space to be. You also want to consider creating that one-to-one space for digital documentation for your entire class. Then you're going to create your first post. We would encourage you to do that in the class space, so that way you could get students to see each other's posts. They can start interacting directly in there. And then inviting people to your class will be essential, of course, to begin having them engaged on the platform. And then finally creating or adding your tag sets. That would be sort of the final steps. I messed up the orders there, but definitely consider adding those curriculum tag sets as part of the getting started process. And there's a QR code there on the screen. Go ahead and you can scan it and have that as a reference guide for launching your first class. I can also repost that in the chat so you have access to the page or the document rather. It will be included in the follow-up as well. And I'm seeing that there's a question in the chat. Is it possible to do this before students are assigned? So creating the class, the one-to-one space, loading the curriculum tag sets, creating your first post in the class space, all of that can be done before you invite students to your class. Yes, that's a great question. No problem. If you have any additional questions, please keep sharing them in the Q&A. Be happy to answer and clarify anything for you. We do have about 10 minutes left here, but I would love for you to share what's one thing you're excited to try in Spaces EDU this year, based on what you saw today.
I'm thinking back to when I had my own class and having a space set up for reading groups would have been perfect.
A dedicated like group space for reading groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Vicky's looking forward to more family engagement.
More family engagement. Yes, I agree. That's definitely important. And there are a ton of resources available on our website for family engagement. I'll make sure to include that in the follow-up email as well. But yes, we can definitely help out in that department.
Do we have any more questions or comments? Shannon's excited for a variety of methods for student interaction.
Yeah, some online interaction in Spaces EDU. Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
great introduction to digital citizenship, I find as well.
Natalie says, regarding the last question, your setup prior to students in the class may depend on timing of rostering. So I think that's for Guadalupe's question about is it possible to do um, like setting up a class, etc. Is it
Yes,
possible when they're assigned?
yes, that's a great point. If you are going to be opting for class rostering, or if your district is, that will depend on the timing of the rostering. But if you're opting for the manual setup, then that you have full control over. Okay. If it's a district setting it up, then just as Natalie mentioned, that will depend on the timing of rostering. Your students might already be added to your class. And so I would just be mindful of what you're creating and sharing, with that in mind, maybe keeping things hidden until you're ready to share. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so to close things off, I just wanted to share here our schedule for the Back to School Summit. It is going on for the next 2 days, so Tuesday and Wednesday. If you haven't signed up for the other sessions yet, like the assessment session on backwards design, you can do so right now by scanning the QR code, or you can go on our website. I'm going to share the link in the chat for you right here. So there are still spots available. If you can't make it, no worries. Sign up anyway so you can get the recording to the session. But we do hope to see you there. I'm very excited to be in attendance for all of these sessions. Um, and you are able to learn from other educators as well. We have some special guests joining us for a couple of these sessions too. All right, I just want to conclude by thanking you so much for joining us today. Some of us are still on summer vacation, but decided to join a webinar in our Back to School Summit. So really grateful for your attendance, for your attention and participation. And I've put up here our support team's email. If you ever run into some technical issues, you can always contact hello@spacesedu.com. And again, quick plug for our survey. If you can fill that out on your way out, you can scan the QR code now, do it later, or you can wait for a follow-up email and and give us your feedback. And as always, you can keep in touch with us through our socials and also be on the lookout for the new season of our podcasts this year. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.